does anybody have like Christmas gifts that they're like, this is what I want and I'm getting it for me, or like somebody better get me this gift if they really love me?
I think I tried putting like a cool background for my thing, but I
That
don't.
space one is hitting it.
No, I wanna get, I think, like the Dyson Airwrap, but I'm still thinking about it because I don't know.
What is the Dyson era? That sounds like cooking.
No, it's you do your hair with it, so it's like an apparatus with like different settings for your hair, like like it's hot air, so it's like a brush, and you're like drying it as you're like brushing it, so it can be straight, and it's like this little cylinder thing that it's like blowing out air from, and then it like it sucks your hair and it makes it like curly in like 20 minutes.
I've
So,
seen that. I've seen that, but you have to get the good one because I've also heard that like people got their hair stuck and then they had to like cut it. But like that, I think they got like the bootleg Amazon one.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of dupes for it, but I don't know. I was just thinking about it because I don't know what else to give myself this Christmas. I think that's the thing I need the most because my hair is kind of crazy right now. So
Well, you're doing, you're doing your press, you have the album fully released. Like it makes me curious, like when you do these things, like do you feel like a division? Like there's you in your life, and then there's the artist. That like she needs the Dyson and she needs the space image.
no, I totally get that. Honestly, I feel like no. It's like at first it was kind of harder for me to like accommodate to like the experience of being like the artist, especially when I'm like recording a video or something like that, because everyone's like no, like don't hold that, like don't carry your own stuff, what if you get hurt, like you're about to record a video, and everybody's like very like very nice to me and stuff like that, and honestly I was not like used to being treated like that.
You're not used to being treated so well.
Yeah, it's like a new experience for me. So honestly, I feel like no, I don't, not now. I think I'm like getting used to not having like those two sides, because then it's complicated like when you get off stage or when you stop like an interview and stuff like that, like you're stuck with yourself again. So there's no like, I don't know. I'd just rather not have that and just be myself.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look at your videos and you hear your songs, what do you feel comes out about you? Like, is there like, do you hear a certain personality trait, or do you hear a certain kind of like vibe that you're like, this is the vibe I emanate with my friends or my family?
To be honest, I think definitely I feel like the most important thing for me for this project is to accompany like sensitive people like me. The whole reason that I started writing songs, like it is out of a necessity for me to express what I feel, because ever since I was a very little girl with like dreams and hopes and everything, I was always told, like I remember like the first guy that I liked, I got really excited and I was already like daydreaming about the wedding and stuff like that, because I'm a very intense person. Because I feel a lot. Like imagine being in love, like a normal person being in love, but I feel like for me, I see like the normality with my friends, and I feel like I'm super intense, and like
Yeah.
heartbreak is always super intense, and being upset is super intense for me. So it's always like those very strong emotions that I was always told to like suppress or hide. I
Mhm.
feel like I'm trying to reach like the audience that is very sensitive like me, so they know that it's nothing bad. Like there's many people around the world that feel that way. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
I'm officially giving your record to like my good friend. I told him he falls in love way too fast. Like by the end of the first date, there's a wedding being planned.
that's complicated. I think for me is that like especially with like love, I'm not in a like a dangerous place anymore, because I'm very picky with like who I meet and who I date and stuff like
Yeah.
that. If I choose to go on a date with you, that's because of something. So I'm not in a lot of danger if I like really like fall in love during the first date.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. But I told him he has to give, because there's like a 3-date curse with him. Where like in the first date he falls fast. He's like, this is the one. And by the third date, it's like something happens. I call it the 3-date curse.
That's so funny. I think there are curses in relationships because I remember with my first boyfriend, he gave me a promise ring like 4 or 5 months in like in the relationship, and that was like something new to me. I was like, what
Yeah.
is this? Like I was super scared, but I was like, okay, it was like a Pandora ring. And I
Yeah.
remember like a week after that we broke up and I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I had another boyfriend like a couple of years later, and he gave me a promise ring from like the same place, and I think it was like very similar to the other one. And I was like, no, I was super scared. I was crying. I was like, we're gonna break up. And he's like, this is a nice gift. And I'm like, you don't understand. And
You
honestly,
broke
a
up.
week after we broke up. So
Broke
I
up.
think there are certain like things and like peculiarities with like
Have you
relationships.
started when you go out, when you're dating somebody, have you started saying, don't you ever give me a promise ring?
Honestly, yes. Like I feel like it's a conversation that I like subtly put into like in conversations when I'm talking
Yeah.
to like, a guy. If we're ever dating or anything like that, it's like, what do you think about promise rings? I personally don't like promise
I
rings.
personally hate them. Aren't they crazy? Let's not.
Yeah, definitely that's something that happens.
But it also could be like one of those things, like maybe the person that is meant for you gives you the promise ring that stays.
That could make an amazing movie story
Yeah, right.
and
Like
a great song.
every person that you date gives you a promise ring and you lose it, but the one that's meant for you, it stays.
Hey girl, you're giving me like song ideas for free right now.
That's, yeah.
It's gonna be Anillo de Promesa.
I was gonna say the title has to be promise ring. Like boom,
Yeah,
that's it,
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Ooh, but that, so as somebody who writes for love and falls in love, is there something that no matter what, like this person has to have these qualities?
I do consider myself like a I write to love in like various ways. So like not only in relationships, but I think for me, like to have a company, I feel like it has to be someone. And I've talked to my mom about this all the time because sometimes I don't know, she sees like a guy on the internet and like moms, it's like, mira mijita, he's so nice. Like, look, he's crying on TV and stuff like that. And I feel for me, like I feel like I'm a very intense person, so I think complementing each other is very important for me, and I saw that all the time with my parents. Like, my parents have a beautiful love story, and they're very, like, different in their personalities, but very similar in, like, their values, so I think that's very important for me because I feel like if I'm with a very intense, sensitive, and passionate, like,
Yeah,
guy,
get
like, that
it's gonna
yeah, no.
be a volcanic explosion consistently.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes in love being like too passionate can be very dangerous because that's where like obsession comes in, and that's where like toxic habits come in because there's a lot of dependency. So I feel like complementing each other is the best thing. But I think throughout the years, my 21 years, I'm so my in 21 years of my life, I only had like two boyfriends in my life. So
Yeah.
if two, three boyfriends, like no. And the first one that I
You've had
had
a
was
lot of crushes, right?
yeah.
You've had a lot of crushes.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So I feel like I think I've learned not to have like a list, but of course there's like things that I know for certain wouldn't be like a match with me. I used to believe in like love at first sight and like love forever with like one person forever. But now I feel like there's no real like destiny in that way. I feel I'm a very like a big believer. I believe a lot in God, but I also believe that you choose the person that you're gonna be with, you know? I
Yeah.
feel like you have the capacity to love anyone in this world,
Yeah.
but you have to choose wisely because there could be so many possibilities as to who you're gonna end up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like it's a mix, actually. I'm sorry, it's my dog is like the most playful dog, and he's
Oh no, I get it. I have a puppy too.
all over me. I'm like, get off. Um, I don't know. I feel like it's a mix because I always think about this. Is there destiny or is there free will? And I feel like there are things you have to go through and there are things that you haven't. And you
Definitely.
don't really you don't really know which one is which always. But if you make the best choices for you, it won't matter
Yeah.
because either way you grow.
No, definitely. There's a movie Netflix that came out. I don't know if you saw it with the
Promise ring?
honestly, that would make a great idea if Netflix ever like knows about this conversation. We need
Yeah,
to have a patent on the idea
that
to
will be that will be like the next to all the boys I've ever loved. Like
yes,
promise.
yes. That movie is about a girl that she gets pregnant, and there's like two sides of the story as to where she wasn't pregnant and she was, but she ends up in the same place at the end. So I understand, like for me, I feel like I believe that God works in mysterious ways and that everything happens for a reason and you learn from every situation. But I feel like as to like partners, even friendships, like you get to pick who you're gonna surround yourself with a lot of the times. Like there's a there's a moment where you have to decide, okay, like is this friend really like is this friendship mutual, like is this really healthy like for the both of us and stuff like that, because sometimes we end up in situations where it's not. But I feel like there comes a point where you make that decision with like who you surround yourself with. I think maybe just like personally for me, I think that has worked for me over the past few years, and I think I've built like a really healthy circle around me, and that has helped me grow as a person. So I think at least for me, like having that mentality is better for now.
No, I mean it's one of those, like I said, like it's a good mentality to have, but it also it's protective and it's good and it's positive and you
You're
need
right.
because you always have a role in your own life, even with destiny, because then your role is the reactive one. Like how
Definitely.
you react to destiny. So I definitely think that you are making a powerful point. It just always sparks me for some reason.
Yeah,
That
it's really complicated, especially if you're like a believer and if you believe in that everything like God has planned for you at the end is gonna come. I feel like it's very like difficult to know like what situations, like you said, like literally what you said, like what situations aren't like where you have the free will. Like
So it makes me curious then, like when it comes to music, do you use that as a checker of your free will? Because you're kind of doing all this self analysis, all this manifestation in some ways, like about destinies and about yeah, like it's self analysis, but it's also like manifestation. You're writing what you want, what you've been through, what you need. Do you use it as a checker to kind of measure that you're always being the freest version of you?
I think yes, especially because like I said, like I've always been a very like sensitive person to the extreme. Like actually um my psychologist diagnosed me with this thing in Spanish. It's called PES. It's like extremely sensitive person. Like it's like a I don't know if it's a syndrome. I don't want to be ignorant and like talk about things that I'm not like
Are you
very
sure you're just not a Pisces? Like somebody would say.
they say that I'm an Aries, so I don't know. um I think I was always like told, I like I said, to suppress who I am, and that was something that I had ever since I was little. Like even though they told me that I was very courageous, like to like never let that stop me from being who I am. Like I remember I used like the first breakup that I had, I was talking to my mom and she's like, you know, you learn like you have to be more like vigilant next time and like whatever, like you know the mom talk after like your first breakup when you're very young. And
Yeah.
I remember I always told her like you like no mom, like I'm if I have to cry like a week because this is what I feel, like I'm gonna do it, you know. And I always fought very hard for that. So I think with my music it's the same thing. Like yes, like the answer is yes. I think for me it's like a way to stay in that like free will and like be just who God made me, you
Yeah.
know. And that comes in a lot of ways. That comes in Abril, that comes in Espacial, that comes in Himalaya, that comes in Soñarte, which are the 4 songs plus the cover that I have on my EP. And I feel like all of them display a different, like, intense emotion. So definitely I feel like everything I write comes from like my heart and like my experiences. So it's very like sincere into who I am, especially now that I'm like introducing myself to the public in a different way and like with a bigger platform and everything. I feel like that's my best way. I feel like the EP and like the next record that's gonna come, like the album and etc. It's like the best way to say like, hey, like this is Mariangela, this is who I am. Hello, music world. Hello, people that
Love
listen.
me, I'm awesome.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know
like, that's how you gotta do it. Love me, I'm amazing, I'm great, love me. No, I get what you were feeling, because I think especially like with parents, like like Latino parents can be very like, don't cry, just keep pulling through. And then if you are a naturally sensitive person, that's really hard. Like it has to come out. It
Yes, no. I feel like with my parents, like I'm a very blessed human. Like I have a beautiful, beautiful family. I hope someday you can meet them. They're probably like outside here, but they're just amazing people. And I feel like my mom always taught me to be myself, but I feel like it's very hard for her sometimes to have like a very intense child who like can cry for like 3 days because I don't know, she saw a puppy die in the street. You know what I mean? And she's like sad all day. So she has to give
hard.
me that balance, but she always encouraged me to feel. And I feel like I am who I am thanks to my mother in a lot of ways. Because I know that you would love her if you've ever met her. I always tell this to everyone, but she's the best. But I also understand where you're coming from, and I see that more on like the man side of the culture, which is something that's it's been deconstructing from a long time, not very long period of time till now. And I feel like we've started to see a little bit of a difference, but um I definitely understand where you're coming from. It's like I feel like our parents, especially like for example, my grandma and my grandparents started from like like the very bottom. Like
Yeah.
my grandpa, I remember, used to sell like newspapers and clean shoes in Mexico a long time ago. My grandma, she had 14 brothers and sisters. She was the oldest in her parents' work, so she had to take care of them. So they were taught to survive. They were
Yeah.
taught survive. So they suppress all these emotions, and that's how the chain starts and keeps going until I feel like like the things that I have now, which like I never grew up rich or anything, but I always had a ceiling, and I'm a very privileged person because I always had something to eat and everything. And I feel like that started with my grandparents, but I think that that mentality has been started to broken down because we've come to a place like for me, like I grew up with the privilege of like focusing on my studies when I was like in school and like going to the university and like maybe not really worrying that much about like feeding my brothers and sisters like my grandma and stuff like that. So I think it's more about like permitting yourself to feel those things, and they were taught to feel like different. It's just crazy, like when
Yeah.
you think about it.
But I also think like too, like they in a like to add a positive note, they also like they've went through these crazy things and they're okay now. So they're kind of like, listen, I know you're having a breakdown, but it really does get better.
Yeah,
You
like
know, it
that
does get
compliment.
better.
Yeah, that complimenting like persona and that like complimenting feeling of like their strength, and maybe the like as avoidant as they are or they were taught to be from their emotions has helped, maybe at least for like Gen Z, like that are very in tune with like mental health and their emotions now and like very conscious about what's going on, like that is complementing each other to keep like a perfect balance as to like the direction that you're gonna go.
It's
So
like
I think it's amazing.
a Star Wars, because we have planets behind you. It's like Star Wars. Like you need the light and the dark to balance each other.
Yes, definitely. I that's the way to be. I feel like that's the human way to live, like trying to find a balance between the things that are there because life isn't perfect, and we're not perfect. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always end my interviews with oracle cards, but I left them in the other room. Do you mind if I go find them for a minute?
What are
I
oracle
always
cards?
and they're like those little cards that say like positive phrases.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I shuffle them and then you hear like the phrase that the universe wants to give you. Just
Oh,
positive stuff,
that's
like
cute.
not
Yeah.
like you need to change your life or you need to finally leave him. No.
Imagine it's like you are a horrible person. You
I would love one that's like your iced coffee addiction needs to stop. It's every day, and I know you feel anxiety. Like so,
oh
those would be so personal, but like hilarious. I wish there was something like that because that would just make me laugh.
that would be awesome, honestly. And I feel like that's something positive in a way to hear. I
Yeah,
don't drink, but I think that's I know a lot of people that are like heavily addicted to caffeine.
yeah. No, my friend, we were laughing about it because she's a nurse and she was like, she told me, oh, Diandra, like just out of curiosity, like how many coffees do you drink a day? And I'm like, oh, at least like 12. And she's like, do you want to die? Do you want to die? I don't know why, for some reason. Like I do, I just love the taste of coffee.
It
It's
tastes delicious.
it's a really, and you can't have tea, and matcha just doesn't measure.
I get that. I think for me, like I love the taste of coffee, and every time there's like a coffee candy, like I try to eat it. But every time I drink coffee, I always feel like I'm gonna die. All the
An
time.
intense feeling.
No, and I'm not a coffee drinker, so one time like that traumatized me. I remember I went to the coffee shop because my friend opened up one here in San Antonio, and I ordered like a cold brew,
Mhm.
and they told me that that like is like very concentrated coffee, and I was like, I drank it like in 10 minutes, and then I was in the car with my mom, and then I was shivering. Oh my gosh.
Got like you got some really interesting cards where so you got the last quarter moon in Sagittarius, which is kind of like you got um Sagittarius is just like very bombastic. We already know that. And it says like practice gratitude. And it's kind of like last quarter. So it's kind of it makes me feel like the that you're entering a new phase in your life. So just like I mean, we're ending the year. So, kind of what this is saying is wrap up everything you love about your life right now. Like, be grateful for it, relish it, because a whole new phase is coming. And that's
Okay.
where new moon comes in Scorpio. Go deeper. Scorpio is like a very structured, hardworking sign. So, if like whatever new chapter is coming is going to ask you to be very much structured, very much vulnerable, which it seems like you have your upcoming album that's coming. So that is so this is like finish this year, going into next year. And then your last card is new moon in Leo. New moons are all about manifesting, and Leo, you just can't beat a Leo when it comes to being seen, and the message is shine. So enjoy what you have right now, really relish it, because it's not that it's going to be gone, but it is going to transform because apparently you are. And next year is a real year of like being seen, but being seen richly, if that makes sense, like for you, the riches that you are.
Aw. That's
Nice.
very encouraging. That's so cute. Thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Hey, well, I love that. And we're like on our last minute. So thank you so much for the interview. It was
Oh,
great
I
talking
love it.
to you about
I
ice
love to see you.
promise ring. Please write it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think that's a good idea, actually. Like I'm being 100% serious. Like I think that's super
You
fun.
write the song, I'll write the YA novel. And
Yeah.
we're doing it.
And when if I ever release it, I mean, you're the first person that I'm gonna talk to for sure.
I was like, yeah, I love it. And it'll be your biggest hit. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.